Let's go ahead and play this clip here as we're getting ready to go in with public safety vice chair, and I think he's the acting chair. It's a little confusing. Senator Frank Blas Jr. But we're going to start with this clip because we're going to this Jerry Kitchen issue. We're starting with this clip, Sabrina, from the GPD oversight hearing.
Yes, this is from the GPD oversight hearing.
Thank you. It's from the GPD oversight hearing, guys.
I'm going to call it the Red Jeep incident, the Jerry Lee restaurant incident. Okay. Earlier, initially, you took the stance that investigation was. I mean, the police officer did the investigation. It was done. Okay, case closed. Then you changed your mind and said that you want that reopened. Can I ask why?
You know, sir, I read the report. I reviewed the report, read the report, and I didn't find anything unusual. However, you know, there's been there's no direct information sent to me, emailed to me, related to me that says something's wrong and you need to do it. There's been, and I think Chris Barnett said it best, there's this supposition that the presence of an officer off duty leads a lot of people in the community to question whether or not this case was handled appropriately. And, you know, when the community comes out and says, Chief, you need to look into it, just maybe dig a little bit further, I don't see any harm in doing that. And, you know, if the community questions the integrity of the Guam Police Department, then as the chief, I think I need to step up and make sure that we either confirm what we found, or if we find differently, then we need to move forward and do what we need to do in holding people accountable. And so that's where we're going with that, is that, you know, there's a lot of community concern, and really there's nothing directly relate to me that I'm aware of to this point, but because the concern far outweighs where we're at with this, I think it was important that, you know, we continue to maintain that trust with the community, that we are above board, and so that's why I ordered that we go ahead and look into this case a little bit further.
And please understand, okay? I mean, just even granted that I think that most individuals, unless you were up at 1:30 in the morning and you witnessed this accident yourself, but based on the photographs and everything, and you know, I understand where the community is coming from, and as far as the concern of how this investigation,
Right.
You know, there was something didn't match with regards to the result of the preliminary investigation and what you saw in the photographs. You got a Jeep that's trying to execute a left turn from Route 1 into Route 14. It jumps a curb, goes clear across a parking lot into a building, and it's imprudent driving.
Right. And so we're looking into that, sir.
And that was a portion of the oversight hearing when Senator Frank Blas Jr. was questioning the Chief of Police, Steve Ignacio, about the Jerry's Kitchen incident. Again, that was in April. So yesterday, the magistrate's complaint had come out related to this particular case, and I'm just going to go ahead and read it. On or about February 25th at approximately 1:30 a.m., Officer Christopher Champion and other members of GPD responded to a car crash at Jerry's Kitchen in Tamuning. Officers observed that a red 2020 Jeep Wrangler had driven through the front wall of Jerry's Kitchen. Upon arrival, officers met with 4 females who stated they had been in the Jeep: Nikita Teresa Uggan, TMAM passenger 1, AMB passenger 2, and JVHT passenger 3. The defendant admitted to being the driver of the Jeep. The defendant stated to Officer Champion in sum and substance that she was attempting to make a left turn onto Route 14 from Route 1, but lost control of the car struck a curb and collided with the front wall of Jerry's Kitchen. Officer Champion did not administer any field sobriety tests. The defendant was issued a citation for speeding, which he paid in full the following day on the 26th. During a follow-up interview with GPD, passenger 3 told officers that the defendant was the one driving the Jeep when it crashed.
A follow-up investigation was then conducted by members of GPD and investigators from the Office of the Attorney General. As part of that investigation, members of GPD and the Office of the Attorney General recovered and reviewed video surveillance and drink receipts from the venue, a bar located in Agutni, Guam, from the evening of February 24th into the early morning hours of February 25th. The video depicts the defendant, passenger 1, passenger 2, and passenger 3 entering the bar at approximately 1:15 in the morning on February 25th. The video surveillance shows the defendant and other passengers taking 7 shots of alcohol each during the approximate 4 hours that they were at the venue. In addition to 7 shots, the defendant is seen drinking 2 additional drinks and 1 glass of water. During the video, the defendant is seen multiple times swaying while standing. Just before the group leaves the venue, the video shows the defendant laying her head on the bar while passenger 1 rubs her back. Passenger 1 then has to help the defendant down the stairs at the venue. When the group was leaving, the Jeep then crashed into Jerry's Kitchen approximately 10 to 15 minutes after the group left the bar.
On April 21st, investigators from the Office of the Attorney General met with the confidential witness, CI, identity known to the Office of the AG. The confidential witness stated in sum and substance that shortly after 1:30 in the morning on February 25th, the CI received a WhatsApp message from passenger 3 stating that there had been an accident and that passenger 3 needed the CI to come to the location. The CI arrived at Jerry's Kitchen shortly thereafter and observed the defendant and the 3 passengers standing by the Jeep, which the CI observed to be heavily damaged. As the police checked out the scene, the defendant and all 3 passengers sat in the CI's vehicle. The CI believed that the defendant and the 3 other passengers were drunk based on their behavior and mannerisms. The CI observed that the defendant appeared to be very sleepy. After one of the officers issued a citation to the defendant, the CI left the location with the defendant and 3 passengers. After dropping off passenger 1 into the care of another at a nearby restaurant, the CI, the defendant, passenger 2, and passenger 3 returned to the venue so that passenger 2 could retrieve passenger 2's car.
Well, in the parking lot of the venue, the CI helped the defendant out of the back seat so the defendant could throw up. The group then remained in the venue parking lot for some time because, per the CI, the defendant was too drunk to tell the CI the defendant's home address so that the CI could drive the defendant home. Eventually, the confidential informant, the defendant, and passenger 3 left the venue, and the CI was able to get the defendant to input the defendant's address into the CI's phone so that the defendant could be driven home. During the ride to the defendant's house, the CI observed that the defendant passed out in the back of the CI's car. Once they arrived at the defendant's residence, the CI observed passenger 3 helped the defendant out of the CI's car. Based on the foregoing, there's probable cause to charge Nikita Teresa Ugun with 1 count of DWI as a misdemeanor. Well, what was that you said in that hearing, Senator? You went to the same traffic school?
First off, good morning, Chris. Good morning, Bree and Jason.
Good.
I think that, I'm glad that there was a second look at this and, gave it an opportunity to be able to clear up some of what I felt as a result of my past experience were things that were left unanswered. Kudos to the chief and to the attorney general for wanting to team together, not just to look at this matter, but other issues, other matters that may have been a thorn on the side of the police department, and get to the bottom of it. With regard to this incident, there was video evidence, and just by taking a look at the scene. Now, again, the advantage that I had in this is my prior experience in law enforcement and seeing that, in this case, 1+1 wasn't equal, didn't equal 2. As a matter of fact, 1+1 here equaled, 0.3, or in this case, 0.08. Okay. Based on, and a lot of it had to do with public concern, with regard to, how this incident was handled. People themselves said, it didn't look right. And so took it upon ourselves in the legislature to urge the police department to take a second look at this. As a result of their second look with the AG's office, did obviously a thorough investigation. They went back and not just got receipts and videotapes of what had occurred prior to the incident, which in this case appears to have led to the incident. Going back and saying, okay, so she was ticketed for imprudent driving. Okay, no. So I thank the police department for doing that.
I just thought it was interesting in the magistrate's complaint where, so the defendant was issued a citation, right, for speeding, and she paid it off next day, no problem. But then it just says, during a follow-up interview with GPD, passenger 3 told officers that the defendant was the one driving the Jeep when it crashed. I mean, why would you need to reaffirm the fact that, the other person was driving the Jeep?
Well,
know what I mean?
Yeah. You remember there's if you're going to take this investigation, a couple of things you need to do is you got to prove beyond a reasonable doubt. Okay. While it was very safe to assume that Ms. Uggan was the driver, you're going to have to go past the assumption and corroborate the fact, if you will. So in the interview of passenger 3, in the corroboration that yes, Ms. Uggan was the driver, it basically it took a check mark on the things that needed to be verified and needed to be corroborated. So you got to remember now, this is now going in a court of law, and in a court of law, you can't be convicted. A person can't be convicted based on assumption. There has to be a fact, and that was the corroboration.
I see. Would it be typical though if you're the responding officer, you show up and there's this big crash, and you have the confidential witness who showed up, said that they appear to be drunk. Wouldn't the officer kind of like, maybe I should do a field sobriety test? I mean,
I'm sorry.
Wouldn't it just be standard for the officer to perform a field sobriety test?
Well, I tell you, I think there was enough in his observation. There should have been enough probable cause to believe that there was more to this accident than just a slip of the wheel. And you're looking at the lives of other individuals and potentially, the lives of individuals who, can you imagine what that scene, how horrific that scene would have looked had there been people in that restaurant? Okay, so I think that's why I encouraged the Guam Police Department to take a further review of the incident itself, because again, in this case, 1 + 1 equals 0.08.
Right. I mean, these guys had more shots than the vaccination clinic.
So, unfortunately, what's going to be, what's vitally missing in a lot of this thing is if there was a field sobriety test, and then a subsequent, sobriety test taken by electronic means or by medical means, that we would know, at what level the driver, at what level of intoxication that she was in. Okay, and so I think there was error on the part of the police officer in not conducting what I felt, what I believe, and based on now, a lot of the evidence presented in the magistrate's complaint, what should have been a standard procedure that wasn't followed.
Was this a cover-up? I mean, you had the chief of police appearing before senators. He was on this show. GPD spokesperson Paul
He
Tapao.
said we were conspiracy theories.
Yeah, there's no DWI, no.
Well, and unfortunately, when you have what had transpired initially, and now what we see today, it's very easy to say that there's a conspiracy in this. That's part of the credibility and the reliability and the trust that now has to be regained. Because of an incident, one incident involving one officer amongst the over 200 officers that they have, or 200 employees they have. Okay, and it's unfair. Okay, but I'm glad. What I'm glad for is that there was and quite honestly, it didn't so much take my urging. I think there was enough of a concern expressed by the community that the chief of police. I didn't say, chief, why don't you put together a task force with you and the AG's office and start to investigate it? He did this on his own volition. Really, quite honestly, prior to the oversight, so that we can start to address those issues. Okay, so with regard to a conspiracy, up to the highest levels, I seriously doubt that.
Yeah, it was a low-level conspiracy cover-up, and they basically got caught when it. But Senator, because you said one police officer, and that's obviously Officer Champion. So, and I think everyone kind of agrees that there should have been a field sobriety test performed there at the scene of the accident. But then the other officer was previously identified as Officer Janine Terlahi, the granddaughter of the public safety chair, was also, she's passenger 3, obviously. Do you think that there should be any administrative action taken against her based on what you see in the Maggies?
Well, from my understanding, there is an investigation, administrative or internal investigation that is ongoing. And I'm sure that a lot of what we're discussing today is going to be looked into in this investigation. As high profile as this case is, I think they'd be very hard pressed to say that do what we can so that we can cover up and save these officers that are going to be implicated. Somebody's going to have to fall for this. Okay, and I think was it an error in judgment? Was it influence in judgment? I don't know. Let that be the investigation. Let the investigation take its course so that we know what it is. I think there's enough eyes on this that there's going to be no shortcuts here. With regard to consideration, I think it's the consideration of the integrity of the police department that's at stake here.
Yeah, Senator, do you think that just reading the document, do you think that the confidential informant, the CI, is a law enforcement officer?
You can't ascertain based on how it was presented who the confidential informant is. And so I eventually short of a plea, if this were to go to court, the identity of that individual may be we may soon know we may know who that individual is, but until such time, I don't want to be part of that assumption as to who this individual is.
What's unfortunate is this, like you said, there was just so much community outcry and so much public reaction that it's just put a lot of heat on officers. And you know, I mean, Officer Terlahi actually approached one of our reporters and tried to hassle him about this whole incident, this whole story, which I feel it's just not right. You know what I mean?
No, and you know, and Chris, you know, first off, we live on a small island, okay? And you know, the beauty of our island is that you know, the individuals, you know, you just go to Happy Mart, you know, on any given day, and you probably run into Senator Frank Blas and you know, Senator Joanne Brown, and even Lieutenant Governor Josh Tenorio. We all shop there, okay? And there are times that we chide each other in the hall in the middle of the aisle. That said, is that the island is small enough that, you know, anybody's business is everybody's business. We're going to find out one way or another. Okay, so to try to hide the truth, to try to hide the mistake, you know, in most cases, you know, it just does no good. Okay, we're human. Okay, you know, our frailties are there every once in a while. You know, that we may be or we may make mistakes. Now, if the mistake becomes larger when we try to hide it, and you know, that's a lesson that we need to learn here. Is that we're a small island. Word does get around, and word gets around a lot quicker today than it was 20 years ago. You know, and so you got to be mindful of that. And this is one of those cases. This is one of those cases where. Yeah. Okay.
It also
you know,
kind of, this court document, it also kind of makes you wonder, was Uggan really the driver?
I want to, again, that's why it goes back to the question that you had earlier as to what was the necessity of getting, you know, passenger 3 to admit, or needing passenger 3 to admit that Ms. Uggan was the driver. Again, it's very safe to assume, okay, this Jeep is owned by Ms. Uggan, okay, so it's safe to assume that she's the driver. Well, you know, you need, that still needs to be corroborated. You know, I myself, when I was, you know, as a police officer, I roll upon a scene, a traffic accident scene, and the people that were involved in the accident, everybody's outside. And so you have to sit there, and what you need to ascertain is, okay, who's the driver of vehicle 1 and the driver of vehicle 2? Okay, and how can that be proven? So, you know, that's why I said I think that that's why it was necessary to corroborate as to who that was.
Do you plan on holding any other oversight hearings?
You know, like I said, when I recessed the initial hearing, you know, I said it was a recess. It didn't end, and the recess was for the purpose of, again, there was, for lack of a better term, homework, or things that we wanted to see get done, or have a plan in place by the time the next time we meet. That was the reason. You know, one of them was, okay, you started now a joint investigation into this incident and other incidents. Remember, there was another thing that was on hot on the table was the shooting that involved, you know, 4 police officers. Right. You know, the drug testing. You know, why hasn't it been taken? You know, the report, the internal affairs outcomes that were basically mandated to be reported on an annual basis. And I'm glad to say that as a result of that hearing, since that hearing, there have been, you know, steps, you know, that the police department has taken to be able to address some of those concerns and some of those issues. Now, you know, mind you that if I have, let's say I convened for conversation purposes now, let's say I convened this oversight hearing tomorrow, okay? And, you know, there was still nothing being done about the drug testing. There was still nothing there was still no progress in the investigations. Then I say, well, guys, come on, this is what's going on here. And so that was the purpose, first off, for recessing, is to give them the opportunity. Okay, we would recognize some of these things. What are those steps that are needed to be able to implement some of those gaps, some of those shortfalls, some of those things that the police department needed to do. Our purpose as a legislature is basically to try to find ways to be able to help them through funding, some of the things they need. I'm glad that many of these things, that were implemented, didn't require necessary funding. Anything they had, I knew they had it well within the budget to be able to do this. And I'm just glad that they've taken those steps to be able to rectify some of those issues. And to tell you what, since then, guys, they've identified other concerns, other issues, internally within their structure, that they needed to improve upon. And I'm glad for that.
Do you think that passenger 2 should be charged with DWI since they returned to the bar in question to retrieve their car after having consumed 7 shots?
Well, I tell you that, if in fact, the evidence pointed towards, each of the occupants of that vehicle being inebriated, or under the influence, of intoxicating substance, it calls the question, okay, so how did they leave the scene? Okay. And there's still a lot, and I'm sure that this investigation continues. This is an investigation that is being conducted, I should say, in the proper form. Mm-hmm. All right. Mm-hmm. The legislative hall in an oversight hearing is not a place for this for this to come up. I think this was proper for it to be in this place.
Right on. Well, I just want to say, no offense to my friend Phil Roberto, but I think the venue is bad luck for cops. Remember they had that one video a few years back with Officer Osborne, unsuccessfully trying to reverse park or unpark or whatever it was? Yeah, it's just, I don't know.
Well, I think in terms of respect also, Chris, you got to be okay that if you do intend, the venue will has the faculties and the facilities and the equipment so that it not just protects itself, but it also protects the public.
Yeah.
Okay. So I mean, can you imagine if they went to? I mean, I know there may be other drinking establishments that first off may not have been as cooperative or have the information necessary to be able to move forward. So I thank Phil for that.
Yeah, no, and I reached out to him and I said, hey, can I get that footage? He said, man, I can't give it to you because they took his DVR as evidence. So there you go.
And so
I tried, guys. I tried. Senator, we got to run, but we're looking forward to the continuation of this oversight hearing.
Yes, and Chris, I assure you, and I've got a weekly call in or with the chief of police to say, okay, where you are with things, do you need help in anything? And every week he's basically says, no sir, I think we're moving forward on this.
Thank you. So
I'm appreciative.
Right on. Okay, that's that.
All right.
Okay.
All right, sir. Thanks, Chris. Hey, and don't forget, you're going to be a reader.
I got you. Yep.
All right.